People usually think mental illness only comes in two forms. Either you act like a wild animal that just escaped its cage, or you're depressed. Well, that's not entirely wrong, but it's far from the whole picture. Because today, we're going to look at some of the mental disorders that anyone can develop, and once again, you're not special. Having a mental disorder doesn't make you cooler, more interesting, or more deserving of attention. High-functioning depression. Take a look at this amazing guy named Gene. He's 25 years old, always crushing every KPI at work and carrying the whole team on his back. At 6 a.m., he's already out for a run, posting his workout on Strava. After work, he still has enough energy to chill with some lo-fi music and read self-help books. On top of that, he's basically the office therapist, always giving advice whenever a coworker needs someone to talk to. But what nobody realizes, that endless positive energy is actually $1 million performance. Written, directed, and starring by Gene himself. But what nobody realizes, that endless positive energy is actually $1 million performance. Written, directed, and starring by Gene himself. Alright, let me translate that into normal people language. It's basically depression that hides behind the mask of a model citizen. Every morning starts with a sigh so deep, it feels like he's trying to empty every last bit of oxygen from his lungs. His body feels as if an entire herd of elephants stomped on it overnight. Yet somehow, maybe because he's terrified of losing his paycheck, or maybe because he's afraid of being judged, he still gets out of bed. He brushes his teeth, fixes his hair, puts on his sharp office clothes, and most importantly, puts on his signature smile. At work, Gene is still the funniest guy in the room, still cracking jokes and making everyone laugh. But while he's laughing his ass off, there's another voice echoing inside his head that sounds exactly like his mom every time he forgot to wash the dishes. What the hell are you doing? Are you actually happy? Really, bro? That's what high-functioning depression looks like. These aren't people who spend all day crying in bed, or threatening to cut themselves or jump off a bridge like in some TV drama. They still go to work, get promoted, still date, and still make their mortgage payments every month. They're such good actors that they might even look more convincing than Zendaya. So here's the real question. What the hell is happening inside their brain? Normally, a happy brain works like a fancy cocktail bar. Behind the counter, you've got 3 bartenders working non-stop like serotonin, the guy responsible for making you feel calm and content. Dopamine, the one that gives you excitement and motivation. And norepinephrine, the bartender keeping you alert and focused. Accomplish something, the bar serves you a nice cold shot of dopamine. But inside Gene's brain, these bartenders apparently haven't been paid in months. Serotonin levels are running critically low, leaving everything looking as gray as a rainy day in London. Dopamine drips out so slowly, about as often as your parents remembered to ask how you were doing. Damn, that one hurts. As a result, every enjoyable experience gets the exact same response from his brain. Yeah, that's nice, I guess, but in the end, none of it really matters. Medically speaking, dysthymia is a persistent form of mild to moderate depression that lasts for at least 2 years, sometimes even decades. If major depressive disorder knocks you flat overnight, then this high-functioning depression can slowly eats away at you over time. You don't die, but you're not really living either. You're just existing. Now let's go back to Gene after work. The second the elevator doors close, or he climbs onto his motorcycle, the energetic Gene mask comes off instantly. He becomes emotionally numb and everything suddenly feels overwhelming. When he gets home, he doesn't even bother turning on the lights and throws his bag onto the floor, finally collapses onto the bed, and still wearing his work clothes. Not a single tear comes out because crying takes energy and his battery hit negative 100% hours ago. He can't even call it sadness anymore because sadness is still an emotion. What he's experiencing is something called anhedonia, a state where the brain has practically lost its ability to feel pleasure. Everything that should make him happy feels empty or somehow makes him feel even worse. He has to force every ounce of strength he has just to do things most people never even think about. Taking a shower, cleaning the room, or simply eating. At this point, you might be thinking, well, this sounds pretty mild. It should be easier to deal with than severe depression. Ironically, comments like that are exactly what make the condition even worse. One day, Gene finally works up the courage to tell his best friend, "Man, I've been feeling empty lately, so I think I might be depressed." Guess what the response usually is? No freaking way. You? Depressed? You still go running every morning, you're making good money, and you were out drinking and laughing with us just yesterday. Or maybe, stop overthinking it, just be positive. And that's when Gene shuts down all over again and learns something. A society only accepts mental illness when someone is crying under a blanket or holding a diagnosis from a psychiatrist. But if you still go to work, still pay your own bills, still know how to laugh at a joke, people assume you're just seeking attention, making things up, or simply being weak. That's what makes this condition so dangerous, because the mask is just too convincing, but all it takes is one powerful spark, and they can spiral straight into major depression. So if you saw yourself somewhere in Gene's story, still functioning and successful but inside feeling like nothing but ashes, then here's the good news. You can still recover. You're simply a machine that's been overloaded for far too long and desperately needs maintenance. Maybe it's finally time to take off the mask that you've carried long enough. High-functioning anxiety. If the disorder from part 1 perfectly represents the running on 1% battery but still forcing yourself to function, then the next condition is its complete opposite. This person isn't low on energy. If anything, they're overflowing with it, and they're constantly operating like they just chugged 2 cans of Red Bull. Everything they do is meticulously organized. Emails get answered within 3 seconds. Deadlines are never missed, not even by half a minute. They always have a plan B, C, D for every possible disaster life could throw at them. Hell, if you asked whether they had a plan to conquer the world, then they'd probably have it. Unfortunately, this isn't a self-improvement video about becoming the perfect human being. That perfection and responsibility doesn't come from passion, and it definitely isn't because they love their company like it's family. They're powered by something far more toxic: pure, overwhelming fear. These people are classic examples of high-functioning anxiety. While most people live by the motto, "I'll deal with it tomorrow," their brains operate under a completely different rule: do it right now, or the entire world will collapse and it'll all be your fault. Their mornings never begin with, "Take it easy." The second the alarm goes off, their brain immediately switches into combat mode and questions start flooding in like non-stop spam notifications. How am I going to handle today's presentation? Why did my coworker only react with a thumbs up? Does he secretly hate me? What if I mess up? What if I get fired, become homeless? Then what? From a medical standpoint, this is known as the fight-or-flight response. For most people, it only activates during genuine danger. But in someone with high-functioning anxiety, their brain treats everything as a life-or-death emergency. It's permanently stuck on red alert, and their engine is constantly revving at 200%. Here's the Gen Z version. Inside your brain is a tiny structure called the amygdala. Normally, when something dangerous happens, the amygdala sounds the alarm and releases cortisol and adrenaline to help you deal with the situation. Once the danger passes, the alarm shuts off and your body relaxes. But with anxiety disorders, that alarm system is broken. It can no longer tell the difference between a real threat and imagined. A simple text from the boss saying, "Can you come see me for a minute?" will make the hell break loose. The amygdala immediately starts screaming, "Red alert, fucking run for your life." The result? Their bloodstream is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline 24 hours a day. Their heart races, sweat constantly, and their stomach ties itself into knots. And if you've ever felt that, there's a good chance it wasn't a stomach problem at all. Meanwhile, their body becomes completely exhausted, but their mind never stops spinning. The greatest tragedy of high-functioning anxiety lies in one word: functioning. Their anxiety pushes them so hard that they compensate by becoming unbelievably productive. They proofread every report 10 times before submitting it. Translation: I'm terrified of making a mistake. They're always polite and smiling to everyone. Translation: I'm terrified someone might dislike me. They take on everyone else's workload. Translation: I don't trust anyone else to do it, and I'm too afraid to disappoint people by saying no. And how does society respond? Of course, people calling them hardworking, reliable, and incredibly responsible. Nobody sees the girl hiding one hand under the desk, digging her fingernails into her own skin just to keep a panic attack under control. Nobody sees the vomiting in the office restroom after another crushing wave of stress. Or the sleepless nights that begin at 2 a.m. spent replaying every conversation, wondering if they accidentally said something wrong to a coworker. They're being tortured every single day, yet somehow society hands them a medal for enduring that torture. Now we're moving on to the highest level of this condition: imposter syndrome. By day they seem unstoppable, but when night falls, that's when the real nightmare begins. They lie in bed and their body is completely drained, but their mind just won't stop running. True to the name imposter syndrome, they convince themselves they're not actually competent. They never get a moment of real rest because the second they slow down, their own self-doubt starts tearing them apart. and the only way they know how to escape it is to work even harder. High-functioning anxiety is like driving a luxury sports car down the highway and everyone watching from the outside admires it. But only the person behind the wheel knows the only way that car is ever going to stop is by crashing into something. That's what makes this disorder so dangerous, is that people suffering from it rarely seek help. They tell themselves, "I'm fine. I'm making money. Everything's under control." Until one day, their body simply gives out from burnout. Or their anxiety escalates into a full-blown panic attack. If you're reading this and parts of this story sound painfully familiar, then listen carefully. No deadline is worth your life. Making one small mistake isn't going to bring the world to an end. Because this isn't a video game, you only get one life. Body dysmorphic disorder, BDD. Meet Lily, a TikToker with tens of thousands of followers. Every time she posts a photo or a video, the comments are flooded with compliments. "You're gorgeous," "an angel's face," "the perfect body." You get the idea. From the outside, people can't help but envy her. She's beautiful, fair-skinned, and has a perfect figure. What could she possibly have to worry about? But have you ever stopped to wonder what she has to put herself through just to look that way? Nobody is born flawless, everything comes at a cost. And Lily is living proof of that. The only problem is she took it way too far. She can spend 4 straight hours just staring into a mirror. And the craziest part is that she isn't even doing anything. 4 hours, just staring at a tiny pimple or a single freckle. Today it's a tiny whitehead on the side of her nose. Yesterday it was an almost invisible wrinkle near the corner of her eye. Last week she became convinced the left side of her jaw was half a millimeter different from the right. I swear, if someone as impatient as me had to deal with this every day, one of us would probably end up on the front page of the crime section. For most people, those things are so insignificant they barely even register. But to Lily, that jawline that's supposedly off by half a millimeter turns her face into that of a complete monster. Welcome to the living nightmare known as body dysmorphic disorder, or BDD. A condition where your own brain becomes a professional con artist that completely distorting the person you see in the mirror. If you think people with BDD are simply humble or want to look good, then you're completely wrong. Lily's entire day revolves around mirrors and her phone's selfie camera. Before leaving the house, she'll take nearly 300 photos under 50 different lighting conditions. Damn, I kinda wish Christopher Nolan could take a few cinematography lessons from her. A lot of people would probably say, "Get a life. Stop being so dramatic. You're just looking for attention." But the truth is, she doesn't want this. She knows exactly how irrational her behavior is, yet the pull of a mirror or a front-facing camera feels as impossible to resist as the gravity of a black hole. She's compelled to check, to inspect, to hide every perceived flaw, only to spiral right back into endless self-hatred. So why would someone who's objectively attractive see themselves as ugly as Shrek? Actually, scratch that. Someone with BDD might even envy Shrek because their insecurity runs that deep. Neuroscientists placed people with BDD inside functional MRI scanners and discovered something astonishing. The brains of people with BDD actually perceive images differently than those of the average person. A healthy brain uses what's called global processing. When you look at someone's face, your brain combines the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and judges the face as a whole, like, yeah, they look healthy. But in someone with BDD, that system doesn't work properly. Instead, their visual network becomes obsessed with microscopic details. It completely ignores the overall appearance and zooms in at full 4K resolution on the tiniest wrinkle. Inside their mind, that tiny imperfection becomes magnified 100-fold until it completely takes over their entire face. Imagine the Mona Lisa with one tiny ink dot in the corner, and a person with BDD doesn't see the masterpiece because they only see the dot and conclude the whole painting is garbage. Furthermore, BDD is closely linked to serotonin neurotransmitter dysfunction and hyperactivity in the brain region that processes fear-related emotions. That is why they not only perceive it as ugly, but also feel an overwhelming sense of fear and humiliation attached to that ugliness. The cruelest part about BDD is that no amount of cosmetic surgery or expensive skincare can cure that. Many people with BDD convince themselves, if I fix my nose, reshape my chin, get lip fillers, then I'll finally be confident. But the tragedy is, the moment one problem gets fixed, their brain immediately finds another one to obsess over. It's an endless cycle. Even the greatest plastic surgeon in the world couldn't repair something that was never physically broken in the first place. Many people with BDD gradually isolate themselves from society. They quit school, quit their jobs, lock themselves inside dark rooms because they can't bear the thought of other people. If you're living through the nightmare called BDD, and if every glance in the mirror makes you want to smash it or leaves you feeling like some hideous monster, then please remember this: your eyes, your mirror, and even your own brain are lying to you. And one last thing, you're beautiful in your own way. Brain fog/derealization. Have you ever stood in front of the fridge, opened the door, and then just stared blankly for 5 fucking minutes because you couldn't remember what you were there to get? Or when you're focused on doing something, and suddenly you just freeze and have no fucking idea what you were doing. But the weirdest part doesn't even stop there. One afternoon, while sitting in a crowded cafe with your friends, you suddenly get this strange feeling, like something is just off. Everything starts to feel surreal and hazy. You start to feel scared, questioning your own existence and the reality of the world around you. So welcome to the forbidden territory of brain fog combined with derealization and depersonalization, a place that'll show you what it feels like to be artificially high. To understand just how fucking annoying brain fog can be, imagine you're playing a game with 999 ping. Brain fog isn't a standalone mental disorder. It's a symptom reflecting a state of exhaustion, inflammation, or extreme overload of the nervous system. You'll try to focus, but your mind feels like it's trying to run a marathon through a swamp. Exhausting, frustrating as hell, and getting absolutely nowhere. This phenomenon is directly linked to neuroinflammation and an imbalance in neurotransmitters like acetylcholine and dopamine. When your body undergoes chronic stress, poor sleep, or the after effects of COVID-19, or subsists on a diet full of greasy-laden foods, your immune system will send out an alarm. The microglial cells in your brain become overactivated, causing a state of low-grade inflammation that spreads throughout the cerebral cortex. It slows down the transmission of signals between neurons. The result: your information processing speed takes a massive hit, and your short-term memory becomes full of holes. If brain fog makes your brain lag, then derealization is the nervous system's desperate attempt to flip the breaker. The human brain possesses an incredibly powerful survival mechanism. When you are subjected to pressure or psychological trauma that exceeds your mind's capacity to cope, the brain automatically switches into dissociation mode. It's like when the power grid gets overloaded and the circuit breaker in your house automatically goes click to prevent the entire system from burning out or exploding. When DPDR occurs, your brain separates your perception from reality. It creates a kind of foggy glass between you and the outside world. What's the point of it? To dull the intensity of your emotions, make everything feel fucking unreal, and keep you from losing your mind under the pressure. The problem with this condition is that, from the outside, people might think you're high or just completely spaced out. No one has any fucking idea what's going on, but the truth is, you're absolutely freaking out inside. You're afraid you're developing schizophrenia. You're afraid you have a brain tumor. You're afraid this feeling of unreality will last forever, that you'll remain trapped behind that foggy glass, never able to feel like yourself again. If you're going through days where you feel like a ghost, seeing the world through a thick fog and questioning your very own existence, then the first thing you need to do is don't panic. You're still fine. Fucking fine. Your brain is just screaming for help, that's all. It's been carrying too much stress, too much anxiety, and way too much emotional baggage for far too long. And now it's forced to switch into safe mode to protect itself. To flip that circuit breaker back on, you can't just use sheer willpower to force yourself to snap out of it. To feel okay again, all you need to do is follow these steps. When you feel your brain going blank, just relax. Once you stop being afraid of the feeling of unreality, your brain's self-protective mechanism will naturally start to ease up. Turn off all phone notifications after 10 p.m. Go to bed before 11 p.m. Get outside, soak up some sunlight, breathe in the fresh air, and walk barefoot on the ground. Stop chugging strong coffee or energy drinks in the hope that they'll keep you awake. Those things will only make your amygdala panic even more and make your brain lag even harder. Adult ADHD. Now, let's move on to people who are extremely intelligent but have some pretty weird personalities. And congratulations, if you have this condition, you're probably pretty damn smart. Looking at their workspace, you'd think it was the aftermath of a nuclear bomb explosion. 3 half-finished cups of coffee from 3 days ago have gone moldy. Their headphones are so filthy, you'd think an entire tiny civilization could be living inside them. And on their computer screen, they've got 37 browser tabs open at the same time. One tab is a work report that's due soon. One tab is a YouTube video explaining why the fuck penguins don't have knees. Another is an e-commerce site with a cart full of 15 items they impulsively decided to buy at 2 a.m. One tab is an online shopping site with a cart containing 15 random things they impulsively decided to buy at 2 a.m. But life isn't as simple as those harsh judgments make it seem. They never wanted to become someone who lives in complete disarray. They've beaten themselves up and cursed themselves 1,000 times over and swap einen sock. Why is something as simple as sitting down and typing a 2-page report such a fucking ordeal for them, as if you're asking them to master iron ball training in Tibet? A lot of people still think ADHD only happens to little elementary school kids who can't sit still and run around the classroom. Dead fucking wrong. As they grow up, that physical hyperactivity doesn't disappear, it just moves inside their brain. The report is due at 5 p.m. It's 10 a.m. They know exactly what they have to do. They sit in front of the computer, hands resting on the keyboard. But something is stopping them from getting the work done. They immediately slip into a state of full-body paralysis right there in their chair. To escape the guilt, they start cleaning their desk, wiping the windows, or even researching the history of button manufacturing. Doing every pointless thing imaginable except the actual task. At exactly 4 p.m., when the flames of the deadline are licking at their ass and the pressure becomes unbearable, their ADHD brain suddenly kicks into hyper-focus mode. For the next 60 minutes, they transform into a fucking god. They type at lightning speed, don't eat, don't drink, don't even go to the bathroom, and tear through the entire workload at the speed of light. But what's the price they pay after that divine possession performance? Complete biological exhaustion. They collapse onto the desk, their mind completely blank. In a neurotypical person, the brain produces and regulates dopamine in a relatively stable manner. Finish a small task? The brain gives you a little dopamine reward, you feel satisfied, and then move on to the next thing. But with ADHD, their brain has a severe dopamine deficit. It's like someone dying of thirst in the middle of a desert, so their brain is forced to constantly seek out whatever gives them the fastest and strongest dopamine hit. The result is that the ADHD brain has one incredibly bizarre feature. It can't properly regulate attention. It's not that it can't focus, it's that it focuses on the wrong thing. Anything that gives it a dopamine hit, video games, movies, random hobbies, it will hyper-focus on to the point of forgetting to eat or sleep. Anything that doesn't give it an immediate dopamine hit reports, studying, cleaning, the brain treats it like a biological threat and does everything it can to avoid it. Unlike illnesses that can be detected through blood tests or x-rays, ADHD manifests externally through behaviors that are incredibly easy to get yelled at for. And after being yelled at and criticized so many times, people with ADHD can develop deep feelings of insecurity and low self-esteem. Years of accumulated helplessness can turn into secondary depression and a deep sense of self-hatred. No one seems to understand that telling someone with ADHD to just focus and be disciplined is just as stupid as telling someone if you're homeless, then just buy a house. That's a difference in brain structure and in neurochemistry, not a matter of willpower or morality. In fact, many of the world's most brilliant minds, artists, and famous founders have ADHD brains. When placed in the right environment and given effective management strategies, the ADHD brain's explosive creativity and ability to hyperfocus can become a genuine superpower. If you see yourself in a story like this, take a deep breath and breathe a sigh of relief. Stop beating yourself up, break your tasks down into manageable steps, and seek professional medical support. Don't try to force a Ferrari brain to run like a manual motorcycle. Understand it, accept it, and learn how to take the wheel before it sends you hurtling into the abyss of self-destruction.